And welcome, everyone, to tonight's Queen Call. We are so overly excited. We have the Queen, Jenny DuFresne, on the line, and we are absolutely excited to hear from her this afternoon. Before we get started, we want to make sure that we start in the name of God and ask Him for His Spirit and to bless us this afternoon and to bless all of the queens that are on the line. Please pray in a position in which you're comfortable. In the most holy name of God, the beneficent and most merciful God, you alone do we serve, and you alone do we ask for your help. Oh God, we ask that you guide us on the right path, the path upon those whom you have bestowed your grace and your mercy, and not the path upon those whom wrath is brought down, and especially not of those who go astray. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, welcome, queens. Welcome, queens. We are very, very excited to have everyone on the line this afternoon. And, of course, as we know, when we talk about the Queen Call, it's our last Thursday of the month. And our Queen Calls are our sacred time. It's our sacred time to make sure that we connect with one another in righteous dialogue, because many times when we get on the phone with our girlfriends or it's time for us to relax, it's usually associated with something negative. You hear women talk about gossip and salons and other places like that. However, the Queen Calls is a very, very sacred circle. And so it's nothing at all but positive energy. It's upbeat information. You're talking about women who are here only to empower and to transform other women. And that is what makes the Queen Call so special, and that's the reason why we continue every month, the last Thursday of every month, to strive to put these calls on to make sure that you all have the most relevant information that you can use, information that will help to transform and bring more purpose and calling to your life. So without further ado, we cannot wait to hear from our very, very, very special guest. It's almost like a part two from what happened on last month in February, if you all were blessed to join us. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Queen Sadia, if she can go ahead and introduce our distinguished guest for this afternoon. Queen Sadia?
Yes. So you're absolutely right, Sister Wakiti. It is part two, and the wonderful thing about this being part two is Sister Monica. This is one of Sister Monica's beautiful, girlfriend that she introduced me with. And so what we're seeing now with these Queen Calls is the interconnectedness and the sisterhood that's taken us all over the world by seeing and being connected and bonded with these sisters who are just powerful in their own right. And so for that, we are grateful and appreciative for. Now, this sister right here, like, I could talk to her all day long because I feel like she's my reflection and I'm a reflection of her, and I respect her so much and what she's done in the short period of time that she's been on this earth. And it just seems like she's crammed so many lives into this one life that she has. Queen Jenny is a transformational leader, speaker, and entrepreneur. Her leadership foundation, built during 10 years of service in the United States Marine Corps, is a powerful compass for women leaders. As a Marine, she learned the importance of integrity, taking care of people, and leading by example. She's a trailblazing entrepreneur and leader. She's recognized for founding and leading the only male public charter elementary school in Washington, D.C. Are y'all listening? And the only all-male early childhood program in the nation. She has served in the federal government, commercial, and nonprofit sectors where she's built teams, infrastructures, and operational systems. Her entrepreneurial leadership experience gives her unique insight into the demands and needs faced by women in diverse leadership roles. But more specifically, she speaks to the Black woman, because we have so many leadership roles that we take on that, you know what, sometimes we don't ask for the help that we need, and we're operating on empty. But tonight, after we hear from our dear sister Jenny, she is going to take us from empty to overflow. So without further ado, let me introduce my beautiful queen sister, Sister Jenny DuFresne.
Thank you so much, Sister Sadia, Sister Wakiti. Thank you for your generous time, for opening this sacred space. I think it's a really profound and powerful testament to the strength of women, the power of women, and the necessity of women being and leading from our overflow. So I'm super excited to be here. I'm super excited to just take an opportunity to share and, as I said earlier, to learn and be expanded in this evening. So thank you so much for your blessings. And also, I really have stuffed a lot into a short period on the earth.
Sister Jenny, you still there?
Yep, I'm still here. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So I'm excited to share lessons of leadership, lessons that I've learned, some the easy way, some the much more difficult way, and that has really given me I think a set of examples to share. And my goal really and my passion is all about leadership. It is the thing that we see sometimes as tangible, sometimes it's intangible, but it absolutely shapes our world in many big ways and many small ways, right? So there's lots of people can be leaders in different ways, and particularly women, but we often may not assume that title or hold that title. So I'm excited about this evening. I'm excited to just be fully present and share what some of the lessons that I've learned along the way.
Okay, Sister Jenny, I have a question.
Absolutely.
You were in the Marines for 10 years.
Yes.
What was that like as a black woman?
Well, I would actually say as a woman, and the reason I say that is, first I went into, the Marine Corps is a completely male, it is a male fighting force. When I was beginning in the 80s, there were about 9,000 women in the entire Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps at that point was about 150-some thousand. And so it was really first as a woman walking into an environment that was often not welcoming. Was, when you learn of Marines, and I love the Marine Corps. I still to this day love the Marine Corps, and learned some extraordinarily valuable lessons of being a woman. And also being just a human being and being a leader. But, walking into the Marine Corps as a woman, if anyone on the call knows about the Marine Corps, it's all about men. It's the few and the proud, and it's men, a few good men. It's not a few good women. It's a few good men. And so in the time when I came in, there were certain things that did not exist. For example, in the Marine Corps, when I served, there were no women who were pilots. That has since changed. But if you can imagine being in an environment where there were no women who could fly airplanes. Now we know women can fly airplanes, but in the Marine Corps, there was a belief that was not one of the things that we could do. My particular unit, one of my units, we were the first women to actually throw live grenades. Now, again, imagine being in a fighting force in the 1980s. We were the first group of people to throw grenades, and the reason for that was there was always this fear that we would drop the grenade and blow everybody up. So there were some real kind of stereotypes of what possibility was. There was I think just a disbelief that women could be extraordinarily successful, and so those are some of the things I had to navigate. One of the other most powerful lessons was how institutions and or people can define your possibility. And so what I learned in the Marine Corps was there was this decision that had been made for whatever reason that women were in essence second-class citizens in what I consider to be a first-class organization. We had physical fitness tests that were less than what the men had. So it always gave the men, the male Marines, an opportunity to say that we were never qualified to be in uniform in the first place because we always had a different set of standards. And so what I learned is that there's two things. One is that we have to be really mindful of our mindset, and I would say, again, particularly as women, and then you can add as African-American women, very, very, very tuned into our mindset, and that we don't take on other people's limitations. We don't take on institutions' limitations. We don't take on, community limitations. So I'm an entrepreneur, and there can sometimes be pushback against women being business owners and being successful business owners. I think we only have maybe two or three women who are leading Fortune 500 companies, and I believe only one of them is an African-American woman at this point, the woman who runs Xerox. And so I learned that it is incredibly important to mind your mind and be very mindful that you're always setting your own path to the extent that you can, reaching and tapping into other people who maybe have gone before, just being a trailblazer. I've also been a trailblazer, actually both in the Marine Corps and then in the civilian side of the world. But it's just really important, especially as women, that if we feel compelled or we feel drawn to do something, even if there are no other examples around, even if there are barriers, even if people tell us we're not capable of it, that we still need to manifest those gifts. We still need to manifest that calling that is inside of us. And I think now more than any time in the history that I've been on this planet, it is absolutely critical that women do that.
Now, give us some principles as Black from your experience over these years, and you've had a lot of experience dealing leadership. On a personal level, we have a lot of type A personalities on this phone call right now. We're striving to do it all. I've heard someone say, we can't have it all. And then I've heard somebody say we can have it all, but not all at the same time. So as leaders in whatever we're doing, give us some practical tools that we can use in order and I believe we can have it all. And I don't know that we can't have it all at the same time is true. So can you talk about that and then some practical tips?
So the book that I've written called From Empty to Overflow, some of these pieces are things that I do touch on. I do think that we can do a lot, and I am one of those people, as you alluded to earlier and before you read my bio, that I've done a lot of things inside of my life. And so I do think that we can do a lot of different things. I do think we have to be mindful of kind of putting our own pressure on ourselves, that we have to have a bunch of stuff sort of like right now. I've had experiences in my life where you couldn't have told me I, for example, would have founded an all-male school. Like, not on my radar, not ever in my thinking, but a series of things happened, and that's what I manifested in the world. So I think the first thing is that we first have to take care of ourselves in our pursuit of creating and manifesting our gifts on this planet. I'm more committed to now, more than I ever have been, of making that really the first thing. And that means that, we're taking care of our physical health, we're taking care of our mental health, we're taking care of our spiritual health first, and then everything outside of that, family, spouse, partners, community, businesses, what have you. But we first have to take care of ourselves. We also, I think it's really critical, and again, something I'm committed to, that we should not do it by ourselves, and we, in fact, need to make a point to collaborate and connect with other like-minded people, right? And so there's some discernment that has to go along with that collaboration. And I think for women in particular, we've often been pitted against each other in certain respects. And so, that's our own personal work that each individual woman must do. But our greatest power is often by linking up with a woman to our left, a woman to our right, a woman in front of us, a woman behind us, and doing work together. We're much more powerful. We're much more dynamic. And it takes away the third thing, which is being lonely, especially as leaders and especially as entrepreneurs. being in collaboration with like-minded people, people who have maybe done it before, who have gone before us, people who are looking to, move forward, that it enables us to get more accomplished, to touch first our own lives and then to touch all these other lives outside of us. So I think those are kind of three areas that I think are really important: self-care, collaborating with other women, and really moving our visions forward, moving our collective vision forward, moving our individual missions forward together.
Now, from your personal life, because we could talk about things in the hypothetical. Like, what is your average day? Like, from the beginning, from the time that you wake up to the time that you go to sleep. And the reason why I'm asking that is there's a certain pattern that successful women have, type A women have, leader entrepreneur type women. And so, I just wanted you to talk about that as far as, what is it that sets us apart from, I guess you would say, type B and C, D to Z?
So I've made some commitments, and again, I live my life a lot differently based on those commitments. There was a time in my life, a really big chunk of time in my life, where it was not uncommon for me to wake up at 2 in the morning or 1 in the morning, and usually a full-fledged panic, and then, my brain would be racing with all the things that I had to do or that I forgot to do, and then I would, send a bunch of emails out to all my team and everybody in the city and all this stuff, right? And so I really got into living that way. I got into, I'm a coffee drinker, so I would subsist on coffee thinking it was a food group. I would go. I started to spend less time in my spiritual work. I started to spend less time outdoors. I started to spend less time in my physical health. And so what I was doing as that type A personality who was so focused and on building and growing and all of that is that I completely sacrificed myself. And there is no honor in that. That's kind of the last few years, that's my focus, is that didn't do anybody any good. And in fact, it created a situation where people felt inferior or felt like they could not keep up with me because, I'm pumping emails out at 2 in the morning and 1 in the morning, and, some people don't want to live their lives like that. So the way I live my life now, still doing a lot, still accomplishing a lot of things, is I wake up in the morning, I wake up at 5. I spend about an hour, give or take, in some form of meditative, prayerful, or spiritual work. That's how I start. It could be any kind of, it could be prayer, it could be a combination of journaling, it could be meditation, it could be anything, but about an hour. I then, because that's what I see as kind of a fuel for me. And then I will, depending on what's going on my schedule, if I'm on a client site, then sometimes by about 6 or 7, I may be on my way to a client site. If I'm working in my office, I usually will spend some time reading so I can refresh my ideas, refresh my perspective, and then I may interact with, loved ones and family members, doing that kind of thing, and then I'll go into work. When I start working, my new way of doing things, I tend not to read my email and go through all that if again, unless there's something critical going on. I will spend time, making sure that I'm organized and focused for the day. Know very clearly the three critical things I want to get done. And then I usually will work about, sometimes about an hour, and then I take breaks. So my breaks may consist of me walking outside. It may consist of me driving to the ocean. But it's some kind of a mental break where I'm not on my cell phone, I'm not taking calls, I'm not talking to anyone. And the reason I do that now is that it's for me really critical to refresh my brain. I was an extraordinary multitasker. Like, I would have gotten the Oscar, the Olympic gold, I'd have more gold medals than Michael Phelps in terms of how much I could multitask. And what I've learned is that it didn't ever really make me more effective or productive, because as I bounced from thing to thing to thing, my ability when I came back, it took me a lot longer to get back on track and remember where I was. So that's something that I just don't do as a productivity tool. I don't multitask. I should say I don't. It maybe is only focused on two things. That I only be maybe going between two projects or two email tabs or a email tab and a program, but that's it. And so that's pretty much how I work my day. I take lunch, and when I have lunch, I am away from any technology, completely unplugged from it. Again, it's a time for my body to absorb food, nutrition. I may go outside. I just try to do something that's very kind of self-nourishing again. And then I usually run the rest of my afternoon like that. I push certain kinds of calls and certain work to the afternoons, so they don't absorb a lot of my creative bandwidth, which is, for me, best in the morning. So there's some things like that. And then I always try to make sure that I cook a meal and eat at a decent hour by maybe 5:30 to 6:30. I'll try to eat and then just wind down for the evening.
Now, how you talked about your spiritual practice. How important is your spiritual practice as it concerns the remainder of your day, and being the quote unquote, and I know you hear this a lot, you're a beast, being that guru, being that at the top of your game. How important is your spiritual life and that spiritual time in the morning?
So it's a non-negotiable.
Well, say that again.
It's a non-negotiable, and it's a non-negotiable out of experience. So there was a time I was very, very, I'd spend a lot of time again cultivating my connection to Source, and felt very in doing that was very balanced. I felt myself, at least, to be very balanced. A lot more. I was able to kind of like bamboo. I could, if the winds came, the winds of whatever was going on, I could sway with it a lot better than without it. And so I had that as a solid kind of practice, if you will. And as I went along and started doing more and more and more and juggling more balls and, just trying to grab time anywhere I could, I began to eat away at that spiritual time to the point where it was non-existent. And so I'm real clear that it's a non-negotiable now, because it is part of how I got myself an ambulance ride. It is part of how I really just began to, like, my body suffered because I was so ramped up on performing that, again, that self-care, that center focus was not there. And so spiritual practice, by whatever a person approaches it, is a non-negotiable, particularly when you're leading, and particularly when you're doing a lot of super energy out. You have to replenish yourself, and that is that's a core way to replenish yourself.
Now, we have Sister Kiana. She's a sister founder, attorney. She's also on the line. She's Superwoman. I wanted to make sure I gave her a shout-out to Sister Kiana. Sister Waikiki, if y'all had any questions for Queen Jenny, the line is open.
I'm listening to your spirit, and your energy is so overly peaceful. And even in the delivery, all of your, and Queen Kiana called, and she made the same statement. She talked about, even when you were mentioning collaboration as just a key to being successful, especially as women. And she said, she has a way of delivering things in a very, very simple manner, but it's extremely profound. And your energy is so overly peaceful. I'm wondering if the empty to overflow has something to do with this radical self-care. do you get to the point where you can have so much more to give because you're taking care of yourself first?
Absolutely, sis. Like so listen, like I meet women leaders all over the country, and actually women from around the world who are leaders. And when I love who we are on the planet, because this planet will be a better place because of women leaders and women leaders. And so when I meet women, and I'm so attuned now to our empty and our depleted spirit. Like I literally a week ago, I encountered a woman at an event, and we were talking, and she was, on fire with, building her company and all that. And I stood there because I'm a stand now for being grounded and being full, leading from my overflow. And I asked her, I said, all that stuff, that's awesome. So what are you doing for your self-care? And it was a question that I think every woman should ask herself, or other sister friends should ask of their sister friends, because I watched her face kind of shift, like that awareness of, I know I need to be doing this. And so I know what the cost is. So I would just tell a little story. So I was in the midst of, I think I was 2 or 3 years into building the school, and it was a colossal, amazing undertaking, and lots of amazing things and lots of really challenging things were transpiring, and I was the right leader for it, right? Even though it was demanding and all of that. And so we were having some challenges inside of the building, and I'd been running on coffee. Like that particular day, I hadn't eaten, and it was around 4 or 5 o'clock. I'd been up probably since 2 or 3 in the morning. I'd, slugged some coffee down, and then it was just adrenaline-fueled all day long. And I had an encounter with one of my leaders, and it did not go well. And I was when people talk about their blood pressure went up, I felt like a big sausage. That's how high my blood pressure was based on this encounter. I just felt like I was going to split open. Anyway, I had an event to go to, so I jump in my car, zooming across town, because I'm afraid I'm going to be late for this fundraiser for a very powerful senator. And I was one of a small handful. I think there were probably 20 of us in this that had been invited to this fundraiser. It was at an intimate place in Upper D.C. It was in an intimate house, I should say. And so I get in there, and I'm trying to decompress from the commute and from this issue that happened with this leader. And I'm standing there with this glass of orange juice, and I'm talking to some of my colleagues. And I remember standing there, and we were talking, and I kind of leaned forward because it was getting hard to hear one of my colleagues, or the group that I was talking to. And then I kind of felt almost like a little bit of a, I don't know, almost like the earth moved just a tad. So I reached out to steady myself. There's a wall to my left, and I reached out to steady myself. And then I remember these gray curtains coming from both sides of my peripheral vision. And it was like this loud, and that's all I heard, and that was it. And I remember then hearing somewhere this thud way, way, way far away. And I woke up from my nap. And when I woke up from my nap, I opened my eyes, and I'm looking up, and I'm trying to figure out why all these men are standing in my bedroom. And then as I became more conscious, I realized that I was not in my bedroom, but I was in a heap on the floor of this very powerful senator's fundraiser, still holding my orange juice, but I was crumpled on the floor. And so that was my first ambulance ride. And I offer that because if if women leaders are not taking care of themselves, not doing that first, if we're leading from our empty, there's a health impact, and it can be a long-term health impact, right? There's a decision-making impact. When we are exhausted, we don't make the best decisions. There is an impact on the profits in our businesses because we're not making the right decisions. We may be hiring poorly, or we may be creating an environment where people can't stay in our companies and our organizations. And then there's a cost to our families. It just goes on and on and on, right? So I'm absolutely committed to us, to women in leadership, to leading differently, and it's completely possible. Like, I also believe that it's completely possible.
Oh, that's a powerful story, Queen Jenny, because, you know, it's just been recently where I just tell people I can't do it. I am not going to do it. I have to look at my husband because he thinks I can do it too. I can do it all. And I think, you know, the mistake we did, me personally, is because I did do it all. And now I have guilt, or I had guilt. I don't have guilt anymore. But I had guilt when I would say no, or I can't do it. You know, I feel like I'm disappointing people. I'm changing the game up. Mm-hmm. How do you walk away from that guilt? And, you know, because I know there had to be some guilt initially, or was it just, you know what, I'm not doing this no more? Like, how do we overcome the guilt of saying no to what someone else wants and yes to us?
I don't have a good answer for that because I think it rests differently with every woman. I think every woman has a different set of levers or pressure points, right? For me, I couldn't live like that anymore. The cost of that was too high. And so the other thing that I realized in all of this, and part of why I'm an entrepreneur, is there's one thing that I want to have. Well, there's two things, but there's one asset that I want to have absolute control over. And I know everyone doesn't have this, but it's what I strive to be very mindful of every day. And that one asset is my time. Because while I can create lots of things, I cannot manufacture more hours in a day. Like, I just can't. And so as I look at how I want to invest my time, I want to invest my time in things that are moving the world forward. But that means that I don't, when I talked about earlier about collaborating, that means I get to play with other people who want to do the exact same thing. And that's exciting to me. That's joyful to me. But like for me now, what's top of mind all the time is, what am I doing with my time? And am I investing my time in a way that first takes care of me? Because I am the engine, right? So I first have to take care of me. I have to fuel me. I have to polish me. I have to do those things for me so I can be a great collaborator, so I can be a great daughter, a great love, all of those things. And so, you know, and as my mentor and coach, Lisa Nichols, often says, she shares a story that, you know, that no is a complete sentence. It really is a complete sentence. No is a complete sentence. And so I've gotten, you know, my mindset has gotten more into just saying no and not feeling, it's not my job to do everything. And I know those of us who are type A's or who have a lot of tremendous output, people who are not doing who are not contributing their time and energy as much as they are capable of, will always tap the person who's doing the most, right? And so I'm committed to even having that conversation. I've had a couple of coaching conversations and mentoring conversations in the last couple of days that no is a complete sentence. And here's how this would sound to the CEO of your company. because we first have to take care of ourselves.
That is pretty profound. No is a complete sentence. I like that. Sister Kiana, your line is open. All right. Now, you have a book that is coming out, sis. So what led you to write your upcoming book entitled From Empty to Overflow, 5 Radical Actions Women Leaders Use to Rejuvenate, Grow Profits, and Inspire People? Like, that's juicy right there. When you the title, I was like, oh, I mean, it touched something. When empty to overflow, oh, my goodness, it like gut punched me.
Well, it's everything that we've talked about, right? Most women leaders that I know are leading depleted. We're just leading depleted, like that's a full sentence. And we're struggling with so much self-talk around it. We're struggling to, be and do all of these different things. But there's a cost that I just personally, I just believe I guess my goal and my commitment and my stand is to start to create a whole different kind of conversation, right? So for me to talk about self-care being number one, like the first thing that we have to focus on, people will say, oh, you're being selfish and all of that. And I because I've led, and I've led at a really high level, like a lot of folks on the phone maybe have had that same experience. I am good to nobody if I'm depleted, if I'm angry, if I'm strung out because I'm so stretched thin, if I'm running around like I've had my head removed, like I am not helping any cause. I don't believe. And again, I've done it, so that's why I take a stand for women to do it differently, and really want to lead the movement for women to do it differently. And it comes out of, there are things that we glorify in this society, in the Western society. We glorify making tremendous sacrifice, and that's usually of ourselves first. We glorify working excessive hours. Like I was watching this great documentary about it focused on Italy and the amount of time that Italians have to vacation. And this interview of this Italian couple, they were mortified that in the U.S., 2 weeks vacation out of 12 months is about normal. They were mortified. And I just thought about, as I was watching, I was thinking about, we in the U.S., we put such an emphasis on how many hours we've worked. Like it's some badge of honor or courage. And in fact, in other countries, they look at us like there's something wrong with us because we think that that's the way to be. The other thing we glorify is we glorify going to work sick or not going to the doctor. And again, I have my hand up because I didn't go to the doctor for 4 or 5 years. As I knew I had medical issues, I knew I had health issues, and I would not go because I was too busy. And I know there's people on this call right now that have not gone to the doctor, and their reason why is I'm too busy. Like I was too busy to pick up the phone and deal with trying to make an appointment with the doctor. Too busy, right? Meanwhile, my health was definitely suffering. We have this whole we glorify being accessible 24 hours a day. Again, those gadgets and stuff that have been in our lives for the last 20-some years, like they don't belong in our bedrooms. They don't belong at the dinner table. They just don't, because they take away our brain resting. They take away us having wonderful connections with our families and wonderful connections with our parents or whomever is in our life. And then we love to be exhausted. We love to talk about the all-nighters we pulled. We love to talk about, ooh, girl, I was up early, or, I was up so early and I went to bed late. And, like, again, I don't understand. Today, now, mind you, I'm coming out of having been all of those things. I don't understand why we've made that a big deal. So part of my mission is really to call that out and then help us, all of us, together create a different way. And there are some things that I think are really powerful to do something different. But that's really the impetus for writing the book, and creating that space.
Now, how can we get access to your book?
So it is going to be officially on the street mid-April. Anyone who's on the call right now, if you guys go to www.leadpowerfully.com, there's a little thing on there. Just enter your name and your email address, and then I'm going to be doing some cool stuff right up before I launch the book, that people will be able to have access to it. So you'll get like early special access. So definitely it's leadpowerfully.com. Put your information in. It's just your first name and email address, I think. And then I'll make sure that whoever's on call, that you'll get access to the book, and some other juicy things as we get nearer to that.
So I understand you're bringing women together from across the nation for a 2-day leadership summit. Can you give us some details on that?
Yes. So this is really kind of scary. First of all, I just want to be real. So, because I've never done an event, not a big event like this, and so I'm doing something very new, but I think it's also really necessary. So we'll be having a women's leadership summit here in Southern California during the month of August. Right now, there's a couple of details, like the date. Like we've settled on a date, and then the one location that I really, really want, because I'm committed to creating an experience so that the women who come, the leaders who come, like we accomplish a couple of things. One, that we are able to connect in authentic and genuine ways with other women leaders, so that we don't feel alone. Like that's a huge thing in leadership, is that we're often always alone because we really can't talk to other people. We can't talk to our staff. And usually when we come home, we can't talk to our spouses at some point because they're sick and tired of hearing whatever goes on at work. And so, but being able to talk to another leader, just stand next to another leader, half the time we can read each other's minds, because if you say one word, we know what's going on. So one of the things that this summit is, the 2-day summit, is to just allow us the space, and really want to create an environment where we just have the space to connect. So that's one really important piece, to really deeply connect. The other is to start getting into some of this conversation and disrupting it so powerfully that we are opened up to new possibilities. And then those new possibilities will build, like I'm really committed to less is more. So what my vision is right now is that the leaders who come, we're going to spend some time going deep, connecting, getting replenished, getting rejuvenated, both the food we eat, the environment we're in, the kinds of activities that we're going to get to do. But then the other part is, as we go back to our homes and communities, is that we'll each have no more than 2 things that we're committing to for either 90 days to 6 months, that we commit to make change in our lives. And so it's a combination of both the self-care part of it, but also looking at our, how does who we are as leaders impact our businesses, or impact, wherever we're leading from. If we're a CEO or a COO, or we're a vice president or director or executive director, like how is it that we're impacting? Because every organization is always a reflection of its leader. So how are we impacting our organizations, our companies, and then what can we do differently? And then create that for ourselves as everyone goes back. So that's the piece. As long as people, in order to find out more about it, the leadpowerfully.com, as the details get firmed up, that'll be the portal to share that information with everyone in your community and across the country.
Well, we'll definitely be there. I mean, I need a vacation anyway. That would be my excuse.
I love it.
Now, before we end, let me see. We have some questions. Okay. So we had one caller. She said, can she talk about how to begin to fuel and why is it necessary? Some people just want to get full, not close to overflowing yet.
Wait, can you repeat the first part of the question?
She says she wants you to talk about how you begin to fuel and why is it necessary. Some people just want to get full, not close to overflow yet.
So how to get started.
They want to be overflow. They just want enough in their glass, and just maybe just full, but not overflow.
Mm-hmm. So how to get started in that?
How do you begin to fuel, and why is it necessary?
So I think how do you begin to fuel? I think one, it's a little bit about what I started. So ask yourself, do you have a non-negotiable connect with your spirit time every single day, 7 days a week? That's one very easy one. Do you have that non-negotiable time? It could be 10 minutes. To me, it should be more than 5 minutes, right? So 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Is that in your schedule 7 days a week without fail? That's the first thing. The second is, are you doing something in nature at least 4 times a week? And that's 7 days. Are you doing something? Because as we've gotten more accustomed to being in buildings, we've taken ourselves out of one of the great replenishers in the universe, which is nature, Mother Nature, right? So Mother Nature's energy is really powerful. Take a walk in the park, get up at lunchtime instead of sitting at our desks and eating and looking at our laptops or eating and answering the phone or eating and being on Facebook. Get up, take our lunch outside, sit in the sun, take our lunch, somewhere. Do something outside. Gives your brain a break. Gives your body some opportunity to absorb some vitamin D. Those are just 3 really simple things, non-negotiables.
Well, what I'm reading right now of the women, they're saying that you are so practical. They love you. And, for us on this call, it's like right on time. That sitting outside or being in nature 4 times a week, that's a big one. Because I don't know how many people on this call can raise their hand and say that they consciously make sure that they're outside 4 times a week in nature. Even if it's just sitting on the grass, putting your feet in the ground to be grounded.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And all of that has to be on our schedules. That's the one other thing, is that it can't be in our minds that we're going to do it. It has to be in our schedules, right? So because that really seems to dictate a lot, whether our schedules are on laptops or on a phone or on a journal. What do you call those things? What do you call those? The little book that we write in, a planner. It has to be a time certain every day, or whatever our schedule is, and then we stay committed to it. Because our worlds are so hectic in general that if we rely on our minds to remember to do that thing, to go sit in nature, to go whatever, it won't happen. And again, I'm just sharing my own lived experience. So it has to be in our schedules. And it's a non-negotiable meeting. So it's as important as the meeting with the chief financial officer. It's as important as the meeting with the board of trustees. It's as important with the meeting at the child's school. Like, it's that important. And so it's not negotiable. Like, we can't, fiddle around and go, oh, well, I'll get to that. Because that's a slippery slope.
Mm-hmm. All right, Sister Waikiki, do you have any more questions before we end?
I'm trying to tweet it. I'm trying to get all of the good points before I get
I know, right?
Oh, my goodness. I definitely have to say, and I'm not really sure if this is a question. You can go ahead and share and if you'd like to and expound on it. But I am really, really grateful for, and I said this before, your spirit and your energy. But in truth, it just seems like a very, very sincere and genuine spirit. And the information, as you said, comes from this level of practical wisdom and the things that you have had to go through in order to get to this point. So what's the importance of us taking an opportunity, within that quiet time and within our non-negotiable moments of meditation? What is the importance of taking some time to actually learn? Because we can observe and we can rest, but it seems like it's so important for us to kind of go back and reflect and learn from some of those mistakes and not make those same ones, but to start making some new ones. So I think that's one of the major things that stuck with me, that you can get to this level of wisdom and peace when you've learned, from going through all of that and making those mistakes, to let's now start declaring to do something different. So the power of a declaration to yourself, to change because you did not like the result and what was at risk. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. I think it's, and I guess that's why I'll talk about my own example a lot, not because I like to talk about myself, because that's not my thing that much, but the path that I've traveled to this point has given me lots of lessons. Some of them have been extremely painful, some of them extremely joyous, but I feel like this piece about how those of us that that if we call ourselves type A personalities, or just those of us that have all of these gifts that need to be manifested on the planet, we have to do it in a way that keeps us whole. And learning our own lessons is powerful and critical in that. Reflecting on our own journey is powerful and critical. And then having the courage to do something different. Like if something isn't working in our lives, then we have to, once we recognize it, see it, then we have to have the courage to do something different. And that's a difficult thing to do. Like the way I lead my life right now, like I had to have the courage, I had to find the courage to do it differently. Because society suggests that I should do it a certain way. Like you should be in this box, you should look like this, you should do, but have the courage to do it differently.
Okay, well, thank you, sis. We appreciate all the wisdom and the jewels that you've given us. You are in the sister circle now.
Okay, thank you.
So we are connected for life. In May or June, we're going to be hosting a book tour for Sister Monica Lewis. And
Yay.
So hopefully, we'll look on your schedule and bring you down here to Houston, because it's all about the collaboration. It's about lifting our sister up. We don't compete. We collaborate.
Absolutely.
We need each other. And,
Absolutely.
you pouring into us your experiences, your expertise, and for sure we want to be able to pour into you as well. So we appreciate the opportunity. Just saying yes. I mean, you didn't even think twice about it, okay? Not later. You may have Googled us a little bit, saw what we were doing, but you immediately said yes, and I appreciate that. That you weren't so busy that you couldn't take time out of your schedule. So we are extremely grateful, and when we say we want to help, we mean that with all sincerity.
Thank you.
And pass it forward. Sister Wakiti, can you close us out with our upcoming event and our volunteers?
Yes, ma'am. Well, again, thank everyone for getting on the call. We truly, truly appreciate you. We have callers from all over the United States, and we are always in gratitude that you take the time out to be with us on this afternoon, this last Thursday of every month. Please join us again for next month's Queen Call, of course, which will be the last Thursday in April. And we would also like to, I guess, everyone that's in the Houston and the surrounding areas, announce, of course, that we are in Summit season. Yay! And the Sister Summit 2017, the Spring Summit is coming. And, of course, this is where we have our women and girls ages 13 to 19 years old. Please bring out your girls, your daughters, your sisters, your nieces. neighbors, your students. It's an all-female summit where we're striving to learn about the path to our purpose, where we come and we teach the girls about what that means, what that looks like. And, of course, we definitely want to share some of the points that we learned today about the importance of honoring yourself, spending the quiet time with yourself, and getting to know you so that you can serve you better. And when you're serving yourself better, you can serve others in a greater magnitude. So we want to invite all of those out. Of course, it's a free event for all of those who are on the call who may not be able to come, but you want to help host one of the 300 to 400 girls that we have. Please stop by myqueendomcome.org and donate. You can definitely donate a lunch, $6, $10, $20 for a lunch for a couple of students. Of course, as we said again, this is a free event and it's self-funded. So please make sure that you help and support that. We're looking for volunteers to come and help with the event, and you can definitely do that on myqueendomcome.org as well. Without further ado, we would like to close out by remembering, of course, that it takes a nation. It takes a nation in order for us to be successful. It takes a nation of women. A man can rise no higher at all than a woman at this point. And so we want to make sure that we are always in unison, and we always want to be connected as a sisterhood activated. Thank you all so much. Before we leave out, we want to pray. But we want to be very intentional about our prayer this afternoon. I'm not sure if everyone has been watching the news, but there are 14 girls from Washington, D.C. area that has been missing over the last 24 hours or 48 hours, from my understanding. And the list is a little bit longer from those who have been missing since February. Please make sure that we're very, very mindful and we're prayerful. We know that sex trafficking is a huge phenomenon going on within our community. All of the girls are girls of color, and this is why we started. We started Queendom Come so that we can join the fight in saving our girls. We have to fight to protect the virtue of our daughters and all of those in our community. So let's be very, very intentional and prayerful for our girls, for the mothers of those girls, for the families of those girls, and pray that God returns them, and that anyone who had anything to do with their disappearance, who meant to do them harm, is paid for fully from the God that pays back more than any individual can. So let us close out in prayer. In the most holy name of God, the beneficent and the most merciful, praise be to you, the beneficent and the most merciful, the master of this day of requital. You alone do we serve, and you alone do we ask for your help and your guidance. Oh God, we ask that you come and protect not only our daughters, but all of those, especially those who are missing. We ask that you bring comfort to their families and return them safely, swiftly, and unharmed. We pray that you would allow all of those who may not know about what's going on to be informed, and then after the information, for us to strive to do something about it to bring back a transformation. We pray that you will seek, that they will seek your face, and we pray that you will intervene in the lives of all of those, that you will stop any hurt, any harm from coming their way. Please return them safely. And in your most holy name we pray, Amen.
Sure.
Thank you all.